warroomsports.com. Get that mobile app.
What's going on, football fans, and welcome to another edition of Field Vision, brought to you by your homies at War Room Sports in conjunction with the Sports Kings. I'm one of your hosts. At the round table this evening, I'm Dev, and I'm here with my partner B. Austin of War Room Sports. What up, B?
Yo, if Floyd Money Mayweather reads a book but nobody's around, did he really read a book?
Murray had a little lamb. We got the homie Frank, Sports Kings. What up, Frank?
I just want to say I'm disowning every one of my friends that knew about the NFL Game Rewind on the NFL Network that did not tell me about it. That is the greatest invention in the history of football. How did I not know about it until last week?
I apologize to you.
An apology.
See, man, that's what I trying to tell y'all, man. Sunday Ticket, I had that stuff for years, man, before they even, Anyway, we got the homie Fred Purdue of collegesportsextra.com. What's up, Fred?
Not much, man. I really think this NFL season's a little wacky.
I'm sorry, collegefootballextra.com. My bad.
I'll give you a pass this time.
All right. So, look, man, we had another interesting week in the NFL. We're going to talk about the champs tonight because the champs are in disarray. They're making midseason trades. But before we do that, since Fred is our college football guru, we just want to get a quick little segment from him. Fred, we're going to ask you, since you studied all of these guys when they were coming out of college and all that stuff, give us 3 rookies that have opened your eyes this year so far in the NFL.
Kyle Fuller, cornerback, Chicago Bears. Gotta love a good corner that can come in and help any secondary that's really bad on the defense that's really bad. I wanted to say Jadeveon Clowney, but I can't say anything about him. He hasn't done anything.
Keep getting them checks. Mr. Clowney.
Quit already.
And this is something off the
Too
field. A player that off the field has not really done anything, has been very quiet. You're going to hear his name, Johnny Manziel. Haven't heard his name all year. I don't think I'll hear his name the rest of the year.
Brian Hoyer got a stronghold on the quarterback position, even though he didn't have a great week last week. The coach, still gave him his vote of confidence, saying that he's firmly placed as our guy right now. So he's basically telling Johnny Manziel, FOH.
Yeah, the vote of confidence is always a bad sign, too.
To be very honest, this class has been very. It hasn't really come to that point where anyone's made a really big impact. Just a lot of good role players. If I had to say one really good role player, Jeremy Hill, running back with the Cincinnati Bengals.
I would say Sammy Watkins for me. I think it's kind of an unfair pick because I think wide receivers are the easiest.
Yeah, that's a bit of a gimme pick. I didn't want to give you something so easy.
My man Sammy Watkins is balling.
Oh yeah.
Frank's New York Giant, Odell Beckham, looks like he's about to take a step forward. Since Victor Cruz is hurt.
Yes.
He scored twice last week against the Cowboys.
Yeah, he scored twice.
I wanted to make a brief segue and point out to our viewers and fans that Devin McMillan is not wearing a Buffalo Bills hat. He did not switch allegiances. He is still very much split between the Philadelphia Eagles and Andrew Luck. That is a Howard University Bison hat. Shout out to you for supporting Howard University, the Bison Sports, man. HBCU. Sammy Watkins is an absolute animal. Might be top 20 wide receiver already.
Whoa. By the way, can I just say, athletes from Florida, we produce the best athletes. Just saying.
Oh, let's move on.
Shut up.
Let's talk about these Seahawks.
Yeah, man. Let's talk about the champs, man. It seems like the champs are in a little bit of disarray. What's their record now? They're 3-3.
3-3.
3-3. They traded Percy Harvin midseason to the New York Jets. There's been some reports that recently came out, kind of, letting us know why that went down. Russell Wilson has some part in this, but before we get to the whole social part of that and talk about the Percy Harvin trade, let's talk about what's happening on the field right now. You know, they just lost a game to the St. Louis Rams in St. Louis right after losing a game in Seattle to the Dallas Cowboys. What do you guys see on the field? Why are they 3-3? What's going on with the champs?
I mean, for me, I on the field, I think last week's game was a little bit, I don't want to say an anomaly, but I mean, the Rams had they had the trick punt play, which was an incredible play, by the way. I just want to take a moment to say that play might have been maybe the best play I've seen in a long time in a football game. That was crazy.
That was hot.
But, you know, they had a lot of special teams plays and just kind of little quirky things that kind of kept them in the game. And they played like a desperate team. Like, it was almost their Super Bowl to beat Seattle at home. And it almost seemed like they came out that way. And, I mean, we've always known that the Seahawks are two different teams at home and on the road. And that's the real concern for me, is that if they're 3-3 right now and there's plenty of teams ahead of them, I mean, the Cowboys are 6-1, the Eagles have one loss, and they're 2 games behind the Cardinals, I believe, in the division.
Their own division, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, if they don't get home field, then it's a whole different ballgame for this team. If they got to go on the road and win playoff games, then it's going to be a whole different road. I think on the field that they just don't have enough weapons is what I'm seeing, especially, and losing Harvin, I think, is huge for them because he brings a whole different dynamic to their offense. They're going to try and replace that with a couple of guys, Michael, the running back, and then the rookie wide receiver that they just
Paul Richardson.
They just activated this week. But I mean, it's hard to rely on rookies and guys that haven't regularly contributed to do that. And I just think you're sort of seeing that they're one-dimensional in a sense.
You know what, Frank? If you know, like, because I can agree with what you're saying on the offensive end. They're not that dynamic of an offense. Like,
Right.
They're not the kind of offense that I see, you know, getting behind in the game and being able to come all the way back. They're not giving Lynch the ball as much as you would expect them to. But I think their biggest problem, surprisingly, has been on the defensive end. They lost people from last season. You got some injuries that have popped up now, injuries that even forced Richard Sherman to do some of the things that, you know, critics say that he doesn't do, switch sides of the field to stick with the best receiver. He's kind of having to do it now out of necessity. The Legion of Boom is just not what they were last season. They're not getting the same kind of pressure on a quarterback. The secondary is not as good as it was. And I think that has a lot to do with, you know, why they're losing these games. Because, like we said, we never could expect their offense to kind of get behind in games or be in shootouts and consistently come out on top. So this defense is just, you know, last year they were like a defense. They seemed like a defense for the ages, and that's already worn off unless, you know, they can somehow get that back.
I'll go and say this team offensively. They remind me of what happened to the Seahawks, to the Chargers when LaDainian Tomlinson was at the end of his rope. They tried to transition from a running team to a passing team, and it didn't really work out as well because
they're doing that too much. Too.
They're trying to make it Russell Wilson's team, and they're forgetting the guy that got them there, Marshawn Lynch, aka Beast Mode. He doesn't get any carries, and by the time he does, it's a little too late. And with Percy Harvin, with the jet sweeps and all that other stuff he can do, that you can make him such a great decoy, just like guys like Reggie Bush, they're the greatest decoys in the world. They may not be the best players, but they're so dynamic you have to account for them on every play. Marshawn Lynch is going to lose that, and that affects his running game as
well. I have to echo your sentiments, Fred, which, you know, is rare, but we do agree with regards to offense and you as well, Dev. I think that offensively there, first of all, let me say this. Before I even get into my little diatribe, I would tell people to relax. Not to the extent that Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback and you can really just lay back and know that, you know, the Seahawks are going to turn it on. Because of the division they play in, there is they have to have a sense of urgency at this point. Mm-hmm. But they're still the champs. As, you know, Frank pointed out, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on 1.5 of those losses. 1.5 in saying that, okay, the Rams played the game of their lives to get that victory. And so that just chalked that in the bag. They were going to lose that game whether they were playing great or not. So that's just a loss. The Cowboys are a lot better, I think, than people thought they were going into that game. And maybe that crept into Seattle's mind, like, it's the Cowboys. This is mediocrity walking. So you can give them a little bit of the benefit there. That offensive line in Dallas is scary. And if you know football, you analyze football. It's not about the skill position. It's not about Witten. It's not about Bryant. Those fat guys in the trenches. The Cowboys are back, unfortunately. You see the symbol on my hat, so I'm very upset about that. I hate it, but that's real. So Seattle, getting back to them, these 3 games, if they end up 10-6, I'd be surprised. I think that they can turn it around. Defensively, they've got to get pressure on the quarterback, and they've got to get pressure with the down 4. I actually took a look at what's going on with their secondary, and really, fellas, they're not playing that far off of where they were before. And I don't think it's a lapse in talent or ability. I just think the pressure isn't coming from the down 4 that they were getting last season. So if they're not getting that pressure, then any secondary, I don't care if you have Rob Woodson, Deion Sanders on the corner, Ronnie Lott, and Steve Atwater, if you don't get pressure with your front 4 and you're dependent upon the blitz, it becomes a challenge. And they're not a blitzing team because they're used to rotating their down linemen and getting that pressure. So they've got to step that facet up of the game in order for them to be a little bit more successful. I want to say some of those injuries, they're not permanent, they're not long-term things. So I want to say that they'll be able to step that off that defensive line up and get it together. So that's kind of my take on their defense. Offensively, it is what it is. I mean, they were never a dynamic offense to begin with. They need to get Marshawn Lynch. Yeah, they need to give Marshawn the ball more, but you want to conserve carries. I mean, he's no spring chicken in terms of football years either. So taking Percy Harvin away, like you said, Fred, that's a big deal because it takes away one of the few dynamic weapons that they did have. They're going to lean on Curse to get vertical. They're going to lean on Doug Baldwin Hills to get vertical. They're going to have to open it up a little bit more, and I don't know that they have that team. I believe Russell is capable at some point in his career. I just don't believe he's that quarterback now. So it's going to be interesting to see how the offense responds with a defense that's wavering a little bit. But I still think that they are the champs. I give them the benefit, and I think that the Cardinals are the Cardinals, so they'll fall off by virtue of being the Cardinals.
Michael, before we go to Frank, I just have to ask this question. Offensively, that offensive line, can you just they don't seem the same. So is it Marshawn Lynch or is it the offensive line being not so used to run blocking anymore?
No, Fred, it's definitely not Marshawn. It's that O-line. They're not used to dropping back and pass blocking that much. Now with Percy Harvin gone, people are loading the box even more to wait on it, and they don't have a really complicated like zone blocking scheme. They're just kind of a hat on a hat, and I'm just bigger, better, and more of a man than you, and I'm going to show you throughout the course of the game, and that's not really working right now. So that O-line got to get it together, but it's not Marshawn. He's all about that action, boss.
To add on to that really quick, I mean, I don't think I've seen any offensive lineman, watching games consistently that gets more penalties than Russell Okung. I feel like that guy gets called for at least 2 penalties a game, and it's just the worst time.
What's wrong with him? He's no longer the he used to be. I just
want to add a couple of quick points before we move on. I'm sure we're going to move on here soon, but I just want to add a couple of quick points. I think 2 things that you're seeing is that they have to adjust to being the champs and being hunted every week and being every team's Super Bowl, and they haven't done that yet because they haven't been a successful team for that long. It's not like they're the Indianapolis Colts in the Peyton Manning era and they're used to people just treating them like the elite team that they are. And I mean, I just think the other thing that you're seeing is they're just 2 different teams. They're 2 different teams at home and on the road, and I just really think that that's just adding up to everything. I just think that is exactly what you're seeing there.
Well, you guys mentioned a few times Percy Harvin being taken away from the team via trade to the New York Jets. Uh, why did this happen? I mean, we're hearing reports now that Percy Harvin was kind of a cancer in the locker room. I mean, we're talking like fistfights with certain teammates.
Before the Super Bowl, that is.
Yeah, they're saying that he basically was this close to leading a mutiny against his quarterback, Russell Wilson. You have a report coming out where people on the team anonymously were saying things like Russell Wilson isn't black enough and he's too cushy with management, which a lot of superstar quarterbacks, that's how it goes. We had that in Philadelphia with Donovan McNabb. When he didn't play, when he was injured, he didn't stand on the sideline like everybody else. He sat in the owner's box. We see that in D.C. with how Robert Griffin III is with Daniel Snyder. So, a lot of these prize QBs and management and ownership, they kind of get tight. Other people on the team don't particularly like that because you don't really know where their loyalties lie. So I don't really know why the whole thing with Russell Wilson and his blackness comes up.
Who, by the way, isn't all the way,
Yeah. I mean, that's when you kind of get into silly talk. He's not black enough just because he speaks well and hangs with rich people. That's
a whole other conversation.
That's what I was saying. We didn't have to get into the whole black enough thing. We're going to do that later on the podcast. But, I mean, do you guys think that it could have possibly been this bad that I guess it was. They got rid of him mid-season.
I mean, I definitely think it could be. I mean, we've seen this from Percy Harvin all throughout his career. Even, I mean, I'm sure Fred can tell you going back to college and days in Florida. I mean, some guys
Percy Harvin just looks like he has an attitude every time he
Percy Harvin, all the way back to his college days, has been labeled as cocky.
Right.
I mean, it's just when you're good and you know you're good, you can kind of give that personality vibe that I'm better than you. And you're not really, you're just a decoy though. So don't act like you're just this super.
I was just going to bring that up, Fred. That's the core of the problem. It's when you're a decoy, but you don't want to be a decoy. So it's like being a decoy is a really selfless thing to do for your entire team. Like if you go out the whole game and you know that you have all this ability, and they're like, yeah, we know you can do all this stuff, but you're just going to chill over there. We're going to act like we're going to use you, but we're actually not. Especially a wide receiver who's traditionally a prideful position, they're gonna be like, nah, like I'm not doing that. Like throw me the ball. What are you kidding?
He's a running back in a wide receiver's body. Coming out of college, he wasn't thought to be. He's gonna be a running back. Now, he's gonna be the Reggie Bush 2.0. He's not a wide out. He gets his touches. I mean, he scored 3 times and it didn't count in a game.
He's explosive, and I'm kind of torn because there's like 3 different issues we're talking about here. Russell Wilson's blackness, I mean, no in and of itself.
Cornball brother too.
I'm afraid that what I may say needs further explanation and context. So I'm hesitant to bridge that subject on this episode, but War Room Sports fans and viewers, look out for a vlog. Look out for another show. We'll touch on Russell Wilson's at another time. But I think that whenever the locker room is divided, it's kind of funny because I get the sense that that's one of those teams where Pete Carroll is more of a leader and father figure than in a lot of other professional football professional football organizations. And so it's a little bit different culture. And it's perhaps more of a college feel, and it's working, but I think that the expectation is in these situations when you're leading grown men, your quarterback has to be more of a leader, more of an underdog if you're in an underdog situation, more of a Superman if you're in a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning situation, more of a us against them if you're Jim McMahon or whatever, going back, shout out to the 85 Bears. But I don't know what type of leader Russell Wilson is. I know he looks good on the commercials that he gets, and he seems, articulate and well placed or whatever. But there's that issue. Then with the whole Percy Harvin thing, I'm kind of torn because if he is cancerous in the locker room, you do got to get rid of him. You have to get him out of there. But at the same token, that whole decoy thing, Frank and Fred, I think they're not explosive enough of an offense to rid themselves of
such
the
a good
most
player.
explosive guy on their roster. So it's kind of like, yeah, I hear you on him just being a decoy, but he has the potential to explode for 15 catches for 198 yards at almost any given time on any given defense. And that being the case, how do you, be in Seattle with what you have, no deep threats really, how do you get rid of somebody like that? And how's it going to
My issue with this whole trade was you gave up so many picks and gave up so much money. You brought him in first off, and he didn't really do anything for you until the Super Bowl. And even in the Super Bowl, he returned a kick. They could have won without him. Then you turn around and pay him, and then you give him away for nothing. So
I just think that was sort of the decision they made, that they didn't care what really they got back for him. But I think B. Austin brings up a good point with Pete Carroll, and that was a point I wanted to make earlier about the Seahawks, and it kind of slipped my mind, was one of the subplots I think with this team is that there's almost too many chefs in the kitchen. It's almost like they have too many dominant personalities, especially because you almost get the sense that defense, even though they take a lot of pride in what they do, they almost feel like they carry the team. Like you can almost feel that defense being like,
they're that defense.
This is where the buck stops.
But they do.
And they do.
But you can't publicly say it.
Right, you create this environment where it's very, you're splitting the locker room, offense and defense kind of.
Dude,
and
Russell Wilson, God bless him, and I want him to turn into the Black Drew Brees. Like I want that for him. But God bless him, dude. Russell Wilson is closer to Brad Johnson at this point than he is Drew Brees. So it's kind of like they win. Just go out, don't make a mistake. Make good, safe decisions, and we'll win. So when you look at his numbers, quarterback is such a celebrated position. He's going to get praise and accolades heaped upon him, regardless of whether it's warranted or not, because of the position he plays. And still face it, in 2014, as much as we like to believe we live in a post-racial society, obviously we don't. So a black or African-American quarterback is going to get celebrated because of the position that he's in. So he gets more than he should, but that's not a knock against him. That's just a function of the position. So it's easy to see how other players could resent that, especially in a case where we know that it's the defense, it's the O-line, and it's beast mode that really drives that engine. You could take him out or put him in.
You were questioning what kind of leader he was. In the article that I read on the BigLead.com, they were saying that what a lot of his teammates were complaining about was Russell Wilson would actually get on them for some of his errant throws and not take accountability for some of the mistakes that he makes. And this is something, like, from us looking outside in, we wouldn't think of Russell Wilson because he and his crew, they carefully craft his image, and you just don't think that something like this would be coming from Russell Wilson. His team even got out in front of this whole story saying, they told Chris Mortensen that they were lobbying for, Russell Wilson was lobbying for the Seahawks to actually keep Percy Harvin so he can work with him, on his anger and trust issues, saying the right stuff at the right time.
Right. Yeah.
But he probably gave the word like,
Save the little angry black gang.
You know what's funny about that Dev, about the even the story about Russell Wilson, and this is the closing point I wanted to make, is that those kind of, when you have dominant personalities like that in the locker room and all that stuff, those kind of stories, when you're 6-1 and you're on your way to the 1 seed, nobody cares about who plays who.
Exactly.
But when you're 3-3 and you're 2 games behind the division and you're the number 8 seed in the in the NFC right now, all of a sudden it's like, why is Russell Wilson blaming? All these things come to a head, and when you have all these dominant personalities and all these strong people that want to voice their opinion, that's that's the downside to a locker room like that, I guess. That comes out
it's
when
a-
you're losing.
It's
Totally
okay.
agree.
It's okay when Richard Sherman's talking a lot of garbage.
Right.
It's okay when they're winning. It's okay when, Russell Wilson's all on these commercials and I'm all about that action boss and all that. That's great. Pete Carroll's all boisterous in college like he seems like he's 30, not 60. That's all fine. And for me, and it's not getting any better. That's the bad part about it. Because next year you have to pay Russell Wilson. And if you franchise tag him, you're really going to have to pay him. And you're going to have to lose even more pieces. Their window is closing for them to be a really great team because you're having to pay. You've already paid Richard Sherman. You've already.
I'm gonna blame that on free agency though. That's not their fault.
That's not their fault. But you have to take advantage of that window when you have it. Marshawn Lynch, like you said, is in a spring chicken. Are you willing to pay him now with no production? Their offensive line, you're going to have to draft that. You're not. You're gonna have to pay Cam Chancellor. You got to pay Malcolm Smith. You have to pay Bobby Wagner. You have to pay whoever. And Michael Bennett when his contract comes up again. You got to pay.
Basically, you're saying they're done. All right.
I'm not saying they're done, but I mean, that's just a laundry list of guys you got to pay.
I'd like to throw a little known name in the mix here that I think is kind of important and critical to this. The former fullback who has since retired, Michael Robinson, the Penn State quarterback.
Yes.
He was a huge leader in that locker room.
Yes, he was.
Huge leader in that locker room. And I think that his absence plays into being able to control that bunch a little bit better and disseminate information and interpret things and communicate between coaching staff, players, position coaches.
He was one of the older guys too.
Yeah.
That team is very young. I don't think that their star core guys are like under 27 or younger.
27, yeah. All right, so we got to move on to our games of the week. I just wanted to make this last point. This situation with Russell Wilson and Percy Harvin, it seems a lot like the situation between Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb. Just from the standpoint of Percy Harvin actually had, a contingency of players who were backing him, because, you have the people who come out now and acknowledge, Percy Harvin was a cancer. He did this and he did that. But then you have the anonymous bunch who come out and say, like, Percy has a point and this and that. So this reminds me of that situation. It's not the first time, and it's not the last time we're going to see it. So let's move on to some of our games of the week so we can get out of here. Let's start with San Diego going to Mile High, going to see Denver on Thursday night. And we'll start with you, B. Austin. Who you got in this one? Battle of two MVP candidates versus Peyton Manning.
San Diego.
Oh,
okay. That's bold. They're playing in Denver, so I'm going to stick with Denver on this one. I think San Diego takes the L. Frank, who you got?
The Thursday night games, you always go with the better team and the home team, so I'm going with Denver.
Fred?
That record's gonna get way better. Give me Denver.
All right. Baltimore at a at a Cincinnati team that is going in the wrong direction. Fred, who you got?
Baltimore.
I agree with you. I got Baltimore going in there and taking one from Cincinnati. Baltimore's been playing really good the past few weeks. They're getting surprise production from Justin Forsett. And along with him, they have a three-headed backfield. So, they still got two other guys, Pierce and Taliaferro, to throw at you, whenever.
Not to mention Steve Smith is on steroids. I'm just saying.
Steve Smith's still balling. And now Torrey Smith is actually starting to come along in the last couple of weeks. So I got Baltimore going in there. I don't think it'll be easy. I think Cincinnati will have some pride about them. But these are the Bengals. We kind of knew that something would happen sooner or later, and it's kind of happening sooner. Frank, who you got?
I'm actually going to take the Bengals just because I think Joe Flacco is overdue for one of his horrific 3 interception games.
Flacco
He's been playing
game.
he's been playing really well for way too long consistently for it to keep up. So I'm gonna go with history and just say that Joe Flacco has a bad game and Cincinnati wins at home.
He's in line for a wacko Flacco performance.
Right.
B. Austin, who you got?
The great thing about Baltimore is they're balanced. So as much throwing and as much lofty praise is being heaped upon Joe Flacco, Forsett and that three-headed backfield keeps them balanced on offense. Torrey Smith is one of the rare cases of a superb James Jett, Willie Gault type athlete actually learning how to play the position. Because when he came in the NFL, he didn't know.
He was just be honest. Just be honest.
Yeah.
He was Darius Hayward, baby 2.0.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. So
Just not a gangbanger with speed.
And then defensively, they may have a top 3, top 5 linebacking core. Even the spirit of their great father and uncle Ray Lewis is still in those halls. Give me Baltimore.
No weapon.
No weapon, Si. Philadelphia going to the desert to see Arizona. I think these teams have played each other like the last 4 seasons. This is becoming like an Indianapolis, New England type deal. When Peyton, was still in Indianapolis and they happen to play New England every damn year. B. Austin, who you got? You got on your Eagles garb. They're gonna go into the desert and take one. Got smacked around last time they went to the desert. I know. I was there. It was embarrassing. And Kevin Cobb was the quarterback.
I can't pass. I got us tying. Got it tied.
Jeez. So Nick Foles is gonna pull an Andy Dalton.
Tie, man. No, I'm not gonna do that. I hope, based on the cap that you see on my head and the beard that you see on my face, that my birds can pull it off. I'm gonna get people mad back home, and I'm going with the Cardinals winning this at home.
I really. This is a tough one for me.
Their defense is for real.
Yeah, their defense is serious, but just like you said earlier in the show, though, it's like the Cardinals.
They're the Cardinals.
They fall back into being the Cardinals. They started 4-2 that 2 seasons ago. Like when I was talking about the last meeting in the desert, they played last year, but I'm talking about the last meeting out there. They were 4-2. I mean, fans were cocky as hell, and I said before I left, like, I wish I could be here for the last game of the season to see if y'all still acting like this. Of course, I never made it back out there, but what I figured was going to happen happened. I think, I don't know. Chip Kelly doesn't have a reputation after the bye because this is only his second bye week, so he doesn't have the Andy Reid reputation. But I'm going to bank on the fact that a week of preparation, they're getting some guys back. Sproles is ahead of schedule. Kendricks might be back on the field. The 2 offensive linemen, I don't know if they're going to be on the field, Kelsey and Harriman's, but they're ahead of schedule as well. So there's hope for some guys coming back. I say the Eagles go out there and pull out a close one in the desert. So I'm going to pick the Eagles. Frank, who you got?
I'm a big believer in I believe in the Cardinals. My chips are all in on the Cardinals. I think they're a good team. I think Carson Palmer has surprisingly played like a responsible quarterback. He makes the throws. I mean, I saw him a couple weeks ago. He made a nice little Ben Roethlisberger play where he was getting dragged down and he kind of flipped it over to Ellington and got a first down kind of play. He's playing really well, and that's all he has to do. He has to play, like B. Austin said earlier, he has to play the Russell Wilson role for this defense. That's all he has to do. He's been able to do that, been able to stretch the field with Michael Floyd too. I got the Cardinals.
Frank, his nerve might explode again.
Dude, I'm gonna say if the Eagles beat the Cardinals, I believe in the Eagles for the rest of the season.
I would say that too.
Well, for me, of course it'll depend on how the game goes, but as far as Carson Palmer goes, I kind of think, and I don't know if this is going to be the case because the Eagles' defense is never consistent in what they do. If they can get the kind of pressure they got on Eli, you can make Carson Palmer, you can force him into mistakes. Like, he'll throw some picks if you're in his face too much.
You
So
can turn him into Jake Delhomme.
Yeah,
Ooh,
really
I don't
quick,
know.
the other
if that
advantage.
pressure-
Ooh.
I don't know if that pressure.
The other advantage that the Eagles have is they have a lot of speed on defense, and I think that will help them limit Ellington a little bit, because he's purely speed. I mean, that's his game. So I think they can kind of limit him a little bit, and I think that'll help.
All right, Fred, who you got?
I am torn, and I keep wanting to everything wants me to take the Cardinals, but I can't. Give me the Eagles.
That's because he's a college guy. He probably loved Chip Kelly.
I do. I've actually met Chip Kelly a couple times. He's a good guy.
See, that's his guy.
Right,
here we go. You see
That's his
the
guy.
bias?
That's what I'm
Fred,
thinking.
I want to point something out that we run power plays out of the shotgun. You cool? That's okay.
I will say I love his offense. Everything about
Oh,
this.
my God.
He gets
I love
soft and
that.
fancy inside
love-
the five.
Only thing I gotta say, stop throwing the ball in the main goal.
To who?
On the goal line.
Yeah, stop
yeah.
throwing the ball on the goal line. Run the ball.
Stop going shotgun on the goal line. You're
Yes, that too. Just
letting them know, we're not really even
Sometimes
trying.
Sometimes I watch the Eagles play and I'm like, you do know you have Shady McCoy, right? Like you do know that is your running back. He's not. You didn't trade him. Like he's still there.
But then again, I never thought Nick Foles would be the quarterback to actually, just execute this offense like a master. But then again,
Yo, running out of the shotgun is not manly unless it's a draw play.
it's only mainly
Yeah, we
college
don't run
and
draws. It's like snap handoff. Like
Yo, we don't. Yo, I just thought we don't run draws. We run out of the shotgun, but we don't run. Oh my God.
they just snap handoff. All right. So our last game, because
Game.
I don't even know if the Monday Nighters we're talking about. So we're going to talk about Green Bay at New Orleans. New Orleans is basically falling out of the category of even being, even a possibility of being in our games of the week. But we're going to give them one more shot at this. Green Bay going to the Dome. B. Austin, who you got?
Yo, I don't pick against Aaron Rodgers, man. And I love Drew Brees.
R-E-L-A.
I think that Drew Brees is a top 5 QB in the world. I just think Aaron Rodgers is damn near somewhere around number 1, man. I don't think
World, Craig? Of the world?
of the world.
In the world? Really? In the world? Wow.
And his team is bad. That's the thing. Green Bay's not even a good team. They just have him.
They're not. Frank, who you got?
This is one of the games I'm looking forward to. Not because I agree New Orleans isn't good, but I really like the Breeze Rodgers matchup. I want to watch that. I want it to be a shootout. I just want to see some points put up because both these defenses are pretty bad. Even though Green Bay, surprisingly, their pass defense is not too bad for the fact that they're traditionally one of the worst pass defenses in the league, and somehow this year they turned around a little bit.
Both starting corners hurt.
I also you put
because
that
they're scoring, so they know the other team has to pass.
I just think it's unfair. You put Aaron Rodgers' offense in a dome, forget about
Oh,
it.
man.
It's gonna be craziness.
I'll say it like this. Jordy Nelson's gonna make my fantasy team really good.
Shout out to Jordy Nelson. I'm actually.
Gosh, that was a great
He's doing his
pick.
thing.
That was a great
You're
pick.
part of the clan.
And, but no,
No, Riley a part of the clan. Jordan, cool.
No, Frank's team is the Cooper's Clutch clan.
That's the name of my fantasy
Inspired by
team.
Riley. I don't even think Riley's on the team.
He's not.
but
He's just the team owner.
as much as I really wanted the New Orleans Saints to be that division winner, I was so wrong, and I'll take that one. Aaron
Got him in the
Rodgers.
Super Bowl. Got him in the bowl.
Aaron Rodgers is gonna light this team up. It's gonna be bad.
I jumped too soon on the Kenny Vaccaro.
Yes.
I
I can see this game. I can see the Packers probably winning by 10.
Damn. In the Dome. All right, so the Packers are going to go down to the Dome, but I have the New Orleans Saints winning the game.
Oh.
That's me why?
Though.
I don't know why. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a shootout. I don't think Drew Brees is going to make the mistake that he made against Detroit. I think they're going to pull it out at home. So that's 3 for the Packers and 1 for the Saints. This is my last-ditch effort
That's why Dev's such a good host. Did you see how Dev set us all up to pick the Packers? He was like talking about how bad New Orleans was. He's like going it out. We all fell for it. Then in the end, he switched his pick. He's like, yeah, I got the same.
I still think they're bad.
And the bad part about
I still think they're bad. I just think they're still talented and they have an ounce of pride left. And if they don't win this week, it could be.
I think there's some personnel things that stand in your way from that pick. That if Pierre Thomas was healthy, I would give that pick merit, man. But I don't know what they do without Pierre. Pierre is their savior, and they keep trying to kick him off the team.
And that tells you all you need to know about the Saints. Pierre Thomas is their savior.
And
oh man, they've been
he's listed like third string on the depth chart.
No, they be pooping on my man.
What's bad about this game is that the Saints were when the line opened, they were 1-point favorites to win this game, and I'm just like, how? In what way? What gives you? What tells you outside of they play well at home? What tells you that the Saints are going to win this game?
Do they play well at home this season?
Traditionally, since Drew Brees and Sean
they play well at home. That's what I'm banking on. That's all I'm banking on. It's actually, I think both teams are less than what they were touted prior to the season. But they do have the Aaron Rodgers factor over there. But I'm gonna go with the Drew Brees at home factor this week. We'll see how it plays out. I ain't got no money on it or nothing, so it don't matter. All right, so. You guys know the drill. Make sure you subscribe to the page so you know when we're dropping a new video.
Yeah.
All right.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You had this confused look on your face, like, damn.
He wasn't ready to leave. He didn't want to leave. He was like, nah, let's keep going.
So definitely check us all out. You can go to warroomsports.com to see everything we're doing at War Room Sports. Make sure you get that mobile app, iOS and Android. Go to sports-kings.com. You can see everything that Frank and all the guys over at Sports Kings got going on. And you can hit up Fred Purdue if you need some college football knowledge. You can hit him on Twitter at FPurdueSports or collegefootballextra.com. So, like we always tell you guys, don't accept mediocrity, because I've seen a lot of mediocrity on social media, especially lately. And be steadfast in the war against ignorance. I'm trying to do that as well. See you chumps on top.
I can't end the show without saying this. Go Patriots.
Phil Vision.
Kuwait is the war room with 5 nights at the round table. 5 Philly guys diversified and educated.